No, I mean, well, so when you think
Like,
about,
is this the fanciful? Like, do you know what I mean by that? Like, I'm not trying to pick on you in any way. Like policing. Some people are just like, well, this person did a crime. They're for sure going to go to jail. And it's like, no. You'd be shocked how many people get off.
yeah, true,
Like,
true, like you think the system is a well-oiled machine.
yeah.
It's like, no, it fucking sucks.
Yeah. So, like, I'm like, do you know this for a fact that there's this cross matching between the city and the police? Because, like, that makes sense to us, but we're also the car capital, like, stolen cars in Canada.
Yes, but
Drugs.
that's how it goes.
Okay, I wanted to talk to you specifically about. I don't know if we already talked about this before, but are religious people the OG snowflakes?
Oh, we never talked about this. No.
No?
Yeah.
Thoughts on the initial statement?
Like, I think I need a more explanation as to what
Like-
you mean by that.
Well, think of it in terms of, like, just censoring what other people say. So, like, don't say fart. It's a bad word. Like, telling their kids, don't say fart,
Yeah.
Stuff like this. Like, they're the ultimate, like, we're not judging you, but we're judging you.
Yeah, they're the
Kind of
well.
shit.
I don't know, right? I mean, I don't really have that much knowledge about history to say, because for all we know, maybe religion at one point was really open to having people sort of debate this or that subject in it, and nobody cared, right?
I don't know. It sounded pretty murdery to me, but I never,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
followed
but-
history.
I don't know, right? Like, I imagine an era when people are just like, God exists, God doesn't exist. Let's talk about it and figure that out, right?
Yeah,
And then only after money got involved, they started to lock it down, right? And say, no, this is what you have to believe, and you have to read this text, and if you disagree with it, it's
yeah. You're out.
blasphemy, right?
Yeah, you're out. But, like, I mean, in generally, like we shouldn't talk about that at the dinner table. Like, like if they're out with a group of people,
Yeah.
like that kind of, like,
Yeah, like I'm imagining you're thinking not like because religion is a very broad term, right? It's thousands of years of human history, right? I think you're thinking more like
I'm specifically thinking of Christians.
yeah, but even still Christianity is like 2,000 years old. Maybe specifically the last like few hundred years of like specifically Protestant Christianity in North America, possibly Europe. It's probably been a lot more uptight, for sure. That's what you're thinking of?
You think so? I always
Yeah.
think it goes the other way. I always think it gets more progressive.
As, like, what do you mean?
Like, having to adapt with the times, whatever. They can't be as, like, it would be unthinkable 10 years ago to most religious people to, like, have it be acceptable to watch Game of Thrones or something.
Right.
Because of
right.
all the sex scenes, whatever. Now it's like, it's totally fine. They kind of had to get on board with that because as soon as everyone else is, gotten rid of the shame or whatever, it's just like, oh, well, it's out of the bag. Let's try to hold on to this next wall of shit,
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend in junior high who he was involved in the church in some way. I don't know how, but they were against Seinfeld. It's like you couldn't watch Seinfeld in that church. It's
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
There's like no... I mean, yeah, I guess it's like in the 90s, that's the equivalent of like a morally depraved group of people, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
like that whole episode, The Bet. Like, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that probably came up at youth group or something. It's just like, what a
Yeah.
deplorable
Right.
episode. Like, they're betting on, it's like, see how frivolous sex is in this secular blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. I guess for me, because it was so, I don't know. I feel kind of lucky. I grew up in a household that was just so open and not uptight in any way that I completely am desensitized to something like a show that makes a joke about masturbation, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't even click with me that that's a risque topic at all.
Right. Again, as I think because of the internet and like mocking culture, you know, like I think the whole like being like, oh, I'm offended by your blah blah blah, like it's just roundly mocked by most people now. Like it's just kind of like a society has curbed that, like, oh, how dare you insult my gentle, safe zone spirit.
Right. Yeah, and I that's kind of, I think that's where you were going with that, is like we're not talking about like old school church censorship where they burn you at the stake.
No.
We're talking about like very modern era where you have safe spaces, you have trigger warnings and things like that. Did that stuff come from, like, was it religion doing it first, is what you're saying?
Oh, exactly. Well, like, that's the thing. Like, is the woke movement just the same as a religious movement, in the same that like they're trying to do the same thing? Like, let's try to censor everyone's ears so that it's like, you know, I can't even remember the mindset. Like it's been ages since I went to church, so I don't even remember the mindset of why you can't swear. Like that was never really explained clearly. You know, right. Yeah. So this is why when people I know find out that most of my friends are Christian, it's like, oh my God. And I'm like, no. Trust me, they had to get progressive or have chosen to be progressive or kind of hate the church now, believe in God, and like I probably see as atheists in like 10 years.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't really know why that stuff is forbidden in a church setting. Like, I don't understand the logic behind it.
And I think everyone's going to rebel. Anytime you try to like suppress anything, it's like, doesn't it make it, it must make it like extra fun to swear and stuff if you're going to church all the time.
I feel like if I had that upbringing, there would be so much guilt about it. You know, like even just like the anti-drug propaganda kind of still hits me a little bit, you know, when I'm
like, for which ones?
Well, it's just like there's this like notion that euphoria or pleasure, like just taking a drug to feel a good feeling, is like indulgent and wrong in some way, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was the kind of the underpinning of DARE and things like that.
Don't alter your mind. Reality's cool. Got me high on life or whatever.
Right. It's like. The one thing I remember, it's like when medicinal marijuana, right? When they were talking about that, people are like, these people just want to get high, right? Yeah. It's like somehow that is a counter argument to marijuana being medicine, right? It's like, how does that work, right? Like medicine should make you feel good, right? Yeah. So why is a mind-altering substance that makes you feel good preclude it from being medicine? I never understood that, right? I
don't know. Everything around guilt, though, is amazing to me. Like, like an older lady that goes to the hospital and gets drugged up on like Dilaudid and all these other amazing things, right? Can't admit that she had fun at any point.
Right.
Like it's like there's this huge stigma around enjoyment, and you're not allowed to enjoy it. And it's like, if you enjoy it, you're a fucking druggie or exactly. Goddamn beatnik, you know?
Yeah, like I guarantee you, so many of these prescription drugs that patients who use them have to upplay the pain that they're in just to get the drug, right?
Because so many people are.
Yeah. Like you
perceive it as like milking it, or
yeah, exactly. Like if you need like an anti-anxiety medication, right? A lot of times you probably have to go in and explain your anxiety in such a way that it's much worse than it actually is to get the doctor to sign off on it.
Right. That's absolutely true.
It's like it shouldn't be that way. Like for a lot of times, especially with anxiety, it's like anxiety for a lot of people comes as panic attacks, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you need some kind of like pull the ripcord type drug that can just take you out of that panic attack. And it might be something that if you took it regularly, it's addictive and it's incredibly bad for you. But if that's what works in those moments, it's like we need to provide that for people, right? Because panic attacks suck a lot. Right?
But it is a I've thought about this a lot because like just in general, like I used to take like tons of things like Ativan and other like sublingual things.
Benzodiazepines, that's what Ativan is. Right?
Okay. And like I used to use those a lot to like get out of the house, whatever. But then I realized like the only way to get over anxiety is to like push through it. And like, you know, using it as much as I was actually preventing me from getting better. And I think a lot of people don't get the message that like drugs are great. They're like a catch you, kind of stabilize you, shit, whatever. Yeah. But like ultimately you should always be working to like get off them. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, that's
obviously not a blank, you know, like there's drugs that some people need to be on, right? But you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely. And obviously there, like you say, there are drugs that are correcting a physiological problem that the person cannot have otherwise. Specifically referring to these psychiatric drugs that deal with something like anxiety, it's a very fine line because yes, you're correct that relying on the drug is going to make it something that your brain expects, and your brain is going to find a new level of homeostasis where it knows the drug's going to come, so it doesn't have to produce it itself or something like that. It
stops trying.
So that's a problem. But there's also the case like with anxiety. I feel like anxiety perpetuates itself, right? Like if you get into these like cycles where you start to worry about something and then it just kind of snowballs where you start to worry about more and more things. Yeah. And then the final sort of culmination of that cycle is a panic attack where it's just like you have...
This is talking about this is like, okay, cool. I'm starting to pull on my shirt. I'm going to fucking die.
Yeah. So it's like in those cases that like if you just have an interrupt, something that can just like, it's kind of like a forest fire, and the drug is fire, like the firefighters coming in like clearing the brush so that the fire can't spread to the next patch of forest. Right. That's how I kind of see it.
Right. But I think there's a progression thing. I saw people stay on it for like years and years and years, like, and they really never left the house without it. And it's like, you can't compare trauma, whatever, but it kind of seemed to me like they weren't trying to do the work. Like they weren't trying to basically sit in the anxiety, challenge it, realize that like it doesn't come true, push through it. It's like, did I get assaulted when I went out? No, and like, great. And that would be one day more progress, right? It didn't seem like they had that same kind of mindset. They were kind of like, they were told, I need these, there's people that get told they need these drugs. Yeah. And then they just take that as like, this is their excuse to like not have to do shit anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that being the case. I think some people, either they're not educated properly or they're just irresponsible in their drug use, and they take it to that level and it becomes unhealthy and dangerous and all of those things. And I don't know how to prevent that. I don't know what the answer is to that. But I do know that as someone who didn't go that route, who didn't just immediately jump to medication as a way to deal with my anxiety, it's like I've spent years with meditation and exercise and cognitive behavioral therapy and all of these things, and it's like it has given me great tools to deal with it, but I can take a benzodiazepine like Ativan one day, and the next day I'm like, this is what it feels like to be normal. You know?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. And it's like none of these other things ever get you that. And I don't know like how to replicate that.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, right? Like you can just use them all the time. But like I like to think of like, you know, like someone put neuroplasticity like as like your brain, like think about how, you know, people that were paralyzed for years suddenly like regrow, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's like miracle connection, blah, blah, blah. Like just that anything's possible kind of thing. So like, and like my brain has shifted so much that like I've seen some of it as being possible. So it's like, it's hard to communicate that, but like I just know that like things that like, for example, I used to not be able to take off this hoodie because it's like I just couldn't sit here with my elbows exposed. Couldn't imagine like, you know, that would be like a thing I could, something that was going to trigger a panic attack, like kind of thing. And like now I don't really ever think about my elbows in that way. Like it's very rare. Now that we're hyper talking about anxiety and shit like that, it's like for sure I'm thinking about it. And there's no fucking way I'm taking this jacket off. But like in general, like.
Yeah. So what was the thing that did it for you? Like I know you've talked about, you went through a period of like psychedelic use that kind of pushed you into some new mind frame that you were less anxious.
Yeah, but right? I think it was actually like, do you know who Dan Pena? Is that his name?
No, I don't know who that is.
He's this guy that just like yells at people. Like he's like this no holds barred kind of dude. It's just like, you know, you fucking don't get hired because you're weak, you know, like shit like that. Yeah. Anyways, I think it was like a person like that like it just finally clicked to me. Like I needed to stop taking, you know, pills as like this is going to solve it. Cause like these never solve it. I've tried everything. I've gone on and off them. Like I need to actually, like something just clicked where it was like, I need to do shit. And like that in conjunction with days and days of acid put my brain in like a positive loop of like wanting to grow and progress kind of thing.
So it wasn't just giving yourself a psychedelic. The psychedelic was just producing a more malleable brain, which could then be retrained in this way
to have positive thoughts, whatever. So like going outside, right? Again, like you know, Ativan or something does, but like acid was like crazy. It was just like I had no anxiety about running into anybody. I knew the risks. It didn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no threat. It's just like I'm more likely to have all these positive interactions. It's like my brain never thought like that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
In that way, it's like absolutely rewired because like when I go out, I don't see people as this is like I used to really think like every single dude was going to be a fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so that's why I didn't like going out. It was exhausting. But yeah, like now I go out and it's, you know, mostly positive most of the time.
See, I have this strange, I just don't think the kind of anxiety that I'll have is in any way mental, right? Because I can go into circumstances where I know I have no reason to be worried, right? There's nothing about that circumstance that should make me anxious. Yeah. But like my body is still acting as though it's under threat, and I don't understand how to think myself out of that, right?
Right, but that's what they say is like a repressed memory or whatever, and why you go to therapy is in the hopes that you can trace back, like, you know, through attachment theory or whatever, like trace back the original event. Like what's the, you know, that technique that's like you ask like what's the earliest you can remember of the.
I'm not familiar with that one. No.
Anyway, so it's like you trace it back, and you hope to get to the original story that's created, you know, whatever your body, like whatever story your body is now reacting to, right? Like, and so, because like I'm the same way. I know I'm at a children's birthday party. I know it's probably not going to have an altercation, but sometimes my body will be tight. Like, this dad wants to fight, it's there's no connection. And so, yeah, that's something that I'm like hoping to figure out.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. What were we? So the question before was, are religious people the
Original
snowflakes? The question I have for you as someone who came from a religious background is like, how do you feel about religious people who cheat within the context of their religion?
This is why I got beat up by Mormons, genuinely.
Like, what do you mean?
Because they were like, I know it's in their book that they can't have caffeine, right? Like, there's no amendment to that. There's no, you get this on Saturday. It's like, no, you shouldn't have any fucking altering drugs or whatever.
Right.
And so I would go in and like, I'd be bored. This was like you're supposed to catch up on work, like dumb people class. So it's like, you really didn't have anything to do other than fuck around with people.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I like, at the time I was deep in church, and I kind of felt this, like, it's fun to have wars, like your religion is the right I know how this sounds. But
no, it sounds great. What are you talking about?
This is totally how real wars are started. But anyways, like there is something taught to you as a Christian, like you're like, every other faith is dumb and like you have the right one. Like that's kind of taught to you, right?
Right.
And so like I would go in there and just be like, are you guys the ones with the tablets and the guy that like
the golden plates
hallucinated and wrote some shit down and then was like, guys, I have the answer. And now you guys follow it like decades later, like shit like this. And they'd be like, I would go in every week with a new thing that they were doing against their religion, like caffeine. Like that was always the one that they fucking loved coffee. They were all like, I mean, who doesn't love coffee?
Right. That'd be a hard one to.
Yeah. So they were all drinking coffee and I would bring it up all the time and get kicked out of class, which is what I wanted. So.
Yeah. So that in that circumstance.
Teacher was Mormon as well. So.
Yeah. Like that's a crazy story. I can't imagine like at that point, were you against religion, or were you were just trying to say like my religion is better than your religion?
It's just antagonistic culture. Like it's trolley behavior before trolley behavior. Yeah, no, I don't think I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's because I like to like have that kind of conflict, right? Like I just probably found it fun.
Yeah, I was the same way as a kid. I mean, I was always an atheist, but I definitely like to poke and prod at religious people and try to like challenge their beliefs. I don't know why I enjoyed that so much. I think it's just because I saw it as so obviously wrong that I knew I could win the argument. Right? It's just like they can't obviously on a logical ground convince me that they're right. It's just never going to happen. So
right. I remember until I was like at least 23, when Mormons came and knocked on my door, I would try to waste their time for hours. Like I thought it was funny to just see how long I could bait them into staying. Like, like how hardcore are you guys about your religion? 'Cause I'm going to sit here and act like I'm interested in converting as long as you're going to fucking stay here. I'm going to make this a challenge. Like it's like you torture me. Like I hated people knocking. I still do. I hate people knocking on the door to be like, have you heard, Jehovah's blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I haven't heard his fucking message. Like who hasn't? Shut the fuck up. Like anyways, like there was something that just was like, this was payback. It's like, so for years I would just like any day, just if someone came and knocked on my door, just be like, yeah, come on in, have coffee, let's talk for 4 hours. Like I thought of it taking away from them walking to more people's houses and bothering other people.
Right.
Yeah. I just feel like it's so aggressive to like say you decided that pineapples are gross and you start canvassing and start smashing on people's doors that pineapples are gross. It's like, it's pretty fucking aggressive to go around sharing your ideas with other people without them asking for you to come to their house.
Well, that's interesting that you did that. I actually did that as well. And I used to like even into my early adulthood when I'd have like roommates and stuff, and they would just get so pissed off because I'd be letting these religious people in to talk. But it's like I just wanted to have those kind of like metaphysical conversations, right? But what's interesting that I heard recently, and I don't know if this is true, but it seems like it might be, is that when these religions ask their followers to go and witness or proselytize their religion, they're not actually trying to convert people. And that sometimes a conversion may happen, and that's great for them. But what they're really trying to do is they're trying to solidify the belief within the individual that they're sending out, because in the vast majority of cases, that individual is going to experience unfriendly, hostile people when they're trying to explain their religion. And it's going to more sort of connect them to the group that isn't hostile and friendly, which is the religion, right? So you actually being friendly to them and inviting them in is actually much more of a deterrent from them performing that activity than you think. Like, it actually is the opposite of what they want people to do.
They want people to what?
They want people to be
strange
to
have an adversary kind of.
Yeah, so that they can sort of come back and say...
It's cult-like behavior. It solidifies the core. It's like, that's exactly why they tell you in like grade 3, like, go to school and like tell people about it. Yeah. It's like, you're going to get fucking beat up. And,
exactly.
Like your friends are going to mock you mercilessly. Like, that's a great point. I never connected that as a religion and cult thing. That is religion, I never thought about that though. That like sharing, getting to share it, like us to share that we're Christians at like early ages is like a way of like get ostracized so that it's like we're your family now, Yeah. It's like okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting point, but your story about the Mormons that enjoyed coffee, it's like that doesn't bother me because it's like they are just sort of going against the precepts of their religion, and knowingly they're like, you know what, we're not supposed to do this, we love it so much we're going to do it anyways. We'll take the...
Why believe in anything then?
Right. But
I don't know how people can just overlook shit like that. Anyways.
Yes, but the thing that bothers me even more than that is when they cheat in their religion in such a way that they're trying to maintain adherence to it, right?
Like, are you talking about like mega pastors like taking private jets and stuff, but it's saying like they need more money?
No, I'm talking more like I don't know if you're familiar in the Judaism religion, right? There's I can't remember the exact reason for it, but it's so they can't do any business on Sunday, right? The Sabbath. Right? And so what happens in modern societies is like it becomes really impractical for them to do absolutely nothing. Like you can't go to the grocery store or anything, right? So what they do in major cities is they run a wire literally around like dozens, maybe hundreds of blocks. Like this wire is like miles long. Yeah. And they run this wire in a big loop, and they consider that a private residence, so that people in their religion can go about their business on Sunday, right, and still technically are observing the Sabbath. Yeah, right?
I'd never heard that workaround. I had heard of like hiring people to turn the lights on and off, like dinner parties and whatnot. But no, I'd never heard the literal loophole where.
That stuff really bothers me because those people still think that they're being good.
I know
adherence,
but that's what I mean. Like I never understood the cognitive like dissonance that people could like overlook certain. Yeah, like if you're not adhering to it, why the fuck are you still following it?
I know.
Like I don't.
Well, it's like you shouldn't just follow the wording. You should understand what it was trying to do, right? Like you should adhere to the spirit of what you believe in, right? So that's what bothers me, is like these people are convincing themselves that what they're doing is okay within the context of what they believe, and it's so obvious that it isn't. It's like, just give it up. Just be a normal person like the rest of us. Yeah. Right.
But I think that's like there's a fear level there. So it's like the reason I thought about this, but the reason the cognitive dissonance doesn't happen is your fear of the consequence of losing your religion, your family, your friends, whatever, outweighs your. It's like if I lie to you, it's easier for me to kind of build on the lie than to come clean.
Yeah, true. Right.
And so like it's a building on, effect.
Yeah, and I think it's also has a lot to do with just indoctrination, right? These people grew up in this church, and it's hard to break free from that, I'm guessing. Like I don't know, because I didn't have that upbringing, but to me that it's a symptom of that. It's like these people didn't actually choose to believe this. It was like forced on them, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, people can say you have a choice. You don't really, if your whole community believes this thing, right? And it's also like that's completely sculpted your worldview. Mm-hmm. So it's always had the like us versus them mentality,
Yeah, and it's like you grow up, like obviously at some point as children we just believe what we're told, right? Like as a kid, you don't develop those like critical reasoning skills at the point that you start being introduced to religion, right? So you grow up in these communities where you're told the world is a certain way, and you're already fully you're fully absorbed into it by the time you have the capacity to question it, right?
Yeah.
And then after that point, the religion tells you it's wrong to question it, that questioning it is like unethical, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, by like that's the thing. Like you hope you run into people early that give you an outside view. Like you hope you get friends or whatever at like 13, 14, kind of like they're not super smart, but like can challenge your ideas and like it's like make you question what you're hearing at home, right? Like I don't remember that specifically happening, but I know for a fact that is what was happening. Is rather than me try to push people away by like talking about religion, whatever, I was like, no, I want to get to know who this is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it was like I did the double life thing, and until it was finally like, oh, like I'm not remotely Christian. Like I don't agree with any of these people trying to like, again, back to censorship. Just I hated the like scolding and like scoffing, and I was like, by grade 7, I was like, I'm fucking done with this. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think to me, and again, this isn't my world, so it's hard for me to say for sure, but I always imagine that the kind of people that leave the church, there's like two different kinds. There's one type that does have thoughts about cosmology and metaphysics and all of these things, and they've just at some point realized there's all these contradictions within their religion that can't possibly make it true. And so they go on the internet and they find out they're not alone, and then they eventually find an atheist group to sort of confirm to them that this isn't the right way. There's that type, but then there's also the type that they're just not interested in in that subject, right? Like religion doesn't appeal to them because they're not thinking about what happens when they die or the origins of the universe and things like that. They just don't care. And so this world outside the church just seems more appealing because it's less limiting, right?
Yeah. I wish I knew. Like I can't remember my mindset or my friend's mindset, but I remember like for example, like video games, right? Like it would be like there'd be some inappropriate part, and it's like this weird dance you have to do with your other Christian guy friends, where it's like, oh, I'm not interested in tits at all. You know, it's like what a weird scene. Like like just gross. And it's like, okay, after a while, like just the inauthentic. Like friends being inauthentic and shit was just enough to be like, like no.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like again, back to your like trying to represent yourself as one thing and being totally the other. Like, yeah.
So you felt that there was just a fakeness to the religion.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Well, just everybody I knew, anyways. Like it was just very. People would try to have a. Here's who I am. I'm such an upstanding blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't mess with porn. It's like, you knew that guy was the guy that was like really had a problem with porn, right? Like the person professing too much.
That's interesting. I that would not have been my journey. If I had been in a religious upbringing, I would have, I have this sort of naive flaw where I just kind of take too many people as being 100% genuine. So definitely when I was younger, I would have not seen that at all. I would have completely missed that part of the religion and just think, if this person is against porn, he's against porn. That's his thing. I wouldn't have seen that underpinning of like, oh, he's probably.
No, this is that like, if you're a super homophobic preacher, it's like you're for sure renting boys in Europe. Like it's.
Yeah, but that's
always ends up being the story.
That's the thing, is like I don't see that. I'm always fooled by the people's personal lives, right? Like I don't. So that definitely would not have been my.
You clearly didn't have a friend that like growing up was like always with gay jokes and stuff, like, and for sure ended up being gay. You didn't have that guy like, well, you're a fag, you know?
No, I had some friends who eventually did come out, and I completely blindsided me each time. I was just like, what? Really? Like I wasn't the person who knew. Yeah. Like, oh, we all knew that. It's like I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's actually true. That the one guy that I knew, I had no idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
We could talk about the abandoned car out front. I haven't decided whether or not I should call the city or police or. Yeah, like it definitely looks like a stolen car. Like front windshield is smashed, or I mean that front headlight. So it looks like, and there's no license plate, right? So
yeah, well, you can get it towed, right?
No, I know, but like I'm just kind of like, do I have to be the guy to do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
But then it's like, but this is what I mean. I get hung up on do I call the city or do I call the police?
I think just call the city. I mean, there's no reason for you to suspect it's stolen, right?
Front headlight.
Yeah, but I'm sure that
no license plate.
I'm sure that the
shows up at an abandoned lot.
Yeah, but I'm sure the city, whatever company is contracted to handle towing in the city, probably has some crosstalk system with the police if it's registered as a stolen vehicle.
Okay.
It dings in their system, right? Like, oh,
you're sure this is a thing and it's not just something that you have imagined that should exist but doesn't?
No, I mean, well, so when you think
like,
about,
is this the fanciful? Like, do you know what I mean by that? Like, I'm not trying to pick on you in any way. Like policing. Some people are just like, well, this person did a crime, they're for sure going to go to jail. And it's like, no, you'd be shocked how many people get off.
Yeah, true. True. Like you think the system is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it fucking sucks.
Yeah. So like, I'm like, do you know this for a fact that there's this cross-matching between the city and the police? Because like, that makes sense to us, but we're also the car capital, like stolen cars in Canada.
Yes. But the thing is like there's an impound, right? There's an impound lot that the city stores these cars somewhere, and for sure they have an incentive to get rid of them. One way to do that would be to check with the police if it's a stolen vehicle.
Once COVID's done, I decided I'm going to go to auctions. I don't care if I can buy anything. I'm just going to go to police auctions and see what gets auctioned off.
Oh yeah.
Like, or I was also thinking of airport security, like, because they for sure auction off shit like people couldn't take on a plane or whatever. And it's like, I'm just curious what kind of shit you could find at one of those and how cheap.
Yeah, I had a roommate who bought a car from a police auction. It was pretty nice, right? Like, it was some big boat type thing, but it was like, you know, relatively good condition and all this stuff, or so he thought. The thing was, had the worst problem I've ever seen in a car. Some kind of electrical problem where literally the car would just stop in the middle of driving, and the whole thing would just shut down and it wouldn't start again. Like,
said to pull over as fast as he could.
No, like he couldn't even get that. Like, so many times he would just get stuck in the middle of the street and the car wouldn't move.
There's no fucking way I get back in that vehicle if that happens to me once. I had a friend that had like pretty embarrassing car in the same way. It was just like such a piece of shit. And one day I got in and it was so smoky inside. I was like, it's an electrical fire in here, dude. And he's like, just stick your head out the window, man. It's not a problem. Like, it was like straight out of a movie. Like, he's like, it's minus 30 and both of our heads are out the window because the inner, and anyways, it ended up catching on fire. And like, yeah, just that guy drove shit cars all the time.
Just stick your head out the window.
But like thinking back on that now, it's like, as a like 36-year-old, there's no fucking way I get in that car. Like, why was I so like readily like, cool, this will be a fun adventure of like potentially lighting on fire?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just your risk tolerance, right? Like, or not your risk tolerance, but your risk calculation.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you just don't see the total picture of these things, right?
Yeah.
So I recently got my eyes checked for like the first time in like a few decades, right? Yeah. And so I'm nearsighted, right? Not by much, but
what does that mean? You can't see close or far?
I can't see as well far away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like I put the glasses on when I got them in my apartment, and I was like, oh shit, this is how clear it is you can see in other people's units. Like, I had no idea, like, because my vision was impaired. So to me, like, a window across the street was just a blurry color thing, right?
No, this is what I've argued with like everybody. Everybody always tells me like, oh, you're so paranoid, people can't see. I'm like, they absolutely can.
Yeah.
Do you know how I know this? Because I can see in other people's houses when it gets dark. Like, it's like, oh,
I know, when I put those glasses on, I literally can see inside the closets of their rooms. It's like, oh shit, I did not realize it was that easy.
I only got glasses a year ago, and so same thing. It was just like, oh, holy shit, it's a lot easier to drive when you can see the road. Like,
yeah, driving I was like, damn, I can't believe I drove without glasses for that long. Like
just seeing signs, right? Like, it's like trying to read if this is the exit or whatever.
Oh yeah, it used to be like, oh shit, I was supposed to turn there, didn't realize until it was too late.
Yeah.
So yeah, imperfect drug.
Okay, what do you know about kratom?
So kratom is it's kind of like an opiate, but it's not quite. So weirdly, in that space, to be considered an opiate, you have to come from opium poppies. Only drugs that are derived from opium poppies are considered opiates, and anything else that targets the same receptors is called an opioid.
Okay.
Right. So this is an opioid. It targets those receptors, does the same thing as like heroin or codeine or all of those things, but it's much milder, much milder than those drugs, right?
Okay. Is it closer to getting high or drinking?
It's
the effect. Do you think they're lower effects?
It's kratom is extremely mild drug. It's hard to really notice the effects.
Yeah.
unless you take, obviously it's dose dependent, right? So, but yeah, no worries. So there's that. I really enjoy it, but it has a lot of downsides to it. One of the downsides would be it has a very sharp curve so you have a dose that doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the threshold, which is when the dose starts to feel like something's happening, right? And then,
how long? Like how many minutes?
well, I'm not talking about like time. I'm talking about the amount you have to take.
Okay.
So there's the concept of the threshold dose, right? The threshold dose is the minimum amount you need to take for you to feel something, right?
Okay.
So the threshold dose for kratom is very close to the dose that's going to make you feel sick. So you have a very small window where you can play with to say, okay, this amount I'm not going to feel anything. This amount I'm going to feel nauseous. There's a little window where you can actually feel a pleasant effect from it, right?
Fuck that. You've just absolutely talked me out of ever trying kratom.
Yeah, well, you've always said, like, don't give you the downsides. And I'm not even done with the downsides. So there's a few other problematic things about it. It's very unpredictable. Sometimes it makes me feel drowsy. Other times it makes me feel like super energetic.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the biggest problems is a sexual dysfunction in the fact that, like, it's very hard to have an orgasm.
Like whiskey, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything has its downside.
So yeah, I find it's very dehydrating, which I hate because, like, coffee already does that to me. Alcohol already does that to me.
Yeah.
I don't need another drug to also be a diuretic, right?
Does it have a hangover of any kind?
I don't notice it, but I don't take doses to the level that he does.
Would you get hungover from? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, different stuff's going to affect everybody differently.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, some people have told me that, like, they get hangovers from weed, and it's like, okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to take your word for that.
I've never gotten a hangover from weed. I think for weed, the people that claim they get a hangover is, at least the people that I've known that said that, it was they ate just a shit ton of crappy food. Right?
Absolutely.
Because they got munchies.
It's more likely a sugar or whatever hangover.
Yeah.
I would also say, like, I think people confuse, like, actually still being high with a hang. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're like, man, I feel fucked up today. It's like, no, I think you still feel fucked up. Like, because some people, it does affect them so strongly that, like, I'm like, no, these are like tired after effects, or, you know, like, still your come down, you know, like maybe 14 hours later.
Yeah, see, I don't think I've ever been high more than one day. I don't know what that's like.
You've never been high for more than one day?
Yeah, no.
In a row?
Like, I've never taken an amount of marijuana that I was still high the next day. I've certainly smoked weed multiple days.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. I thought you were telling me you've never smoked weed in multiple days, and I was like, how is that possible?
No, like, I used to smoke weed every day and multiple times a day, but I've heard of people who've taken edibles mostly to the point that they woke up the next day and they were still high.
Yeah.
Right. That's never happened to me.
That happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was cooking weed oil, and I just kept licking the spatula. I was ludicrously high, and I woke up the next day and I was like, I need to cancel anything where I'm dry. Like, I was like, I'm still fucked up. Like, I knew what being high was. And, like,
yeah.
I just lost track, like, because it's so good. It's honey, right? It's just like lick suddenly, and just totally, like, have forgotten how much I've ingested. I'm like, oh, I'm getting ripped.
Yeah, I mean, that I've always, especially with edibles, it's like oil or the butter or whatever, to me was like radioactive, right? Like I was handling that shit with care, measuring it very specifically, all that stuff.
Well, that's the thing. I never used gloves. So it was like I was licking my finger, like you're making like chocolate chip cookies or something, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't thinking like, ooh, every 5 mils of this is like, that's that's like 20 milligrams, you know? Like, yeah. And that was when I was on top of making shit. But it's funny now, like, do you know anybody that makes edibles now that it's legal?
No, I don't have a lot of like stoner friends. So is that what you're saying? Like people who bake?
What do you mean? I'm for sure a stoner friend.
Yeah, well, having one doesn't constitute a lot, right? I don't really know anyone else right currently. I've had obviously in the past, but currently within the people that I regularly talk to.
Yeah, but your girlfriend smokes.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, she does. She doesn't make edibles. No, we tried.
Would she not be considered a stoner?
Yeah, I guess so.
She's smoking more than me because she doesn't have the judgment piece that I do that makes me quit every 3 months and then go back to it.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Totally. I
don't think it fucks
I guess
her up
it's so common. I just don't even think about it anymore. It's not like it's not like being a younger person when you start smoking weed and it's like that becomes the canvas by which all other activities take place, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, let's get high and go see a movie. Let's get high and do this and high and that. It's like she just smokes weed and it's just like, having a beer at the end of the day or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. That's my dream. Every time I restart up these like benders or whatever, it's like, okay, sweet, we're gonna hold this to just the evening. Every day we're gonna have this cool down period during the day. We don't wake and bake. We don't, we get shit done. We clean our house. We, go do shit, go for walks, and then we come back at 7. You can get fucked up. That's my ideal. What actually happens is like, I get woken up by the neighbor's car. I'm pissed. It's a justification to just smoke, go back to bed, like. Oh,
yeah.
And so then it's already shot because then I'm sleeping. I'm going back to sleep till like 11. And then it's like, I've missed my peak hours of energy to go walking. And it's likely that I'm just going to smoke more, stay home.
So have you ever tried microdosing?
Weed?
Yeah.
I've never even heard of that.
I mean, that to me is like the way to make weed.
But it's not the getting high I just like smoking weed.
Yeah, but one thing I don't think people realize about weed is like taking a small amount, and maybe it's not microdosing, it's like whatever it is between microdosing and dosing. If there's another word for it, I don't know. But the thing is that you take a small amount of weed, you're still getting high, but it's not like the high is any less intense. It just doesn't last as long, right? That's what I've noticed. It's not like, I mean, maybe once you're fully chronic and you're smoking a shit ton and you're super tolerant, then a small amount of weed's not going to do anything. But if you've been on a long tolerance break and then you get like a one hitter or something and you just smoke a little bit, you still get that intense high, but it just lasts like a very short amount of time. And then you get this like afterglow, right?
Yeah. That's the thing. I had friends that loved doing the one hitter or whatever and like would remain at a small tolerance. But this is how I know it's about smoking is when I come back to smoking, I'm doing half joints at the start because I know it's going to like blow me out of the water. Right. And I stop at half joints initially, but as soon as I can, I'm pushing for a full joint because I just love being outside for that full 10 minutes, like it's more. Yeah,
but I mean, how great could smoking be? Right?
It's that
like,
good.
Hey, listen, I loved it too, but I mean, whatever. There's other things to love,
the thing is, it's always like just find something that would replace it. Do you know what I mean? That's as satisfying as being able to leave anything
Yeah.
to go smoke. Like I loved smoking.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Like if they ever come up with a cigarette that's like good for you, like legitimately good for you, like I will fucking be all over that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I don't know. It's like I remember having this conversation with my mom about mushrooms, not magic mushrooms, just regular mushrooms, right? And we were sitting there. It was me, her, and her husband, and I was like, "Yeah, I just don't like I don't like the taste of mushrooms. I don't want them." And my mom's like, "Oh, you should. They're so good for you, right?" And I was like, "Lots of things are good for me." Right? I don't need to eat mushrooms. There's plenty of healthy things out there that I can eat that are just as good as mushrooms that I enjoy, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing with something like smoking. It's like, yeah, it's a super fun activity. I don't know if fun's the right word. It's like a chill, sublime. Sublime is the right word. It's a very sublime activity that is one of a kind, but there's lots of other activities out there that are just going to be just as enjoyable, right?
No.
Yeah.
Because you're feeding an addiction.
Yeah, well, that's a different subject. We're talking about the ritual of smoking. That's
right.
what you said you're...
I know, but to me, it's like that's intrinsically connected with doing something that's feeding an addiction, because I could go smoke... nicotine-free tobacco, whatever.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be satisfying in the same way. Like, I need to know that this is going to fuck me up somehow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? You can still get fucked up, like, with, say, like an edible or oil or something like that. Like, one thing I used to do is I would take, like, a edible and I would just ride my bike up this massive hill, and
we have such different experiences.
I know. Just bear with me for a second. So I would eat some kind of edible, not too much, and then I would just bike up this massive hill, and it would get, because it was physically strenuous, that would bring the sort of the effect on much quicker because my blood's pumping, it's getting everything through the system. So by the time I got to the top of the hill, I was completely fucked up, right? And then I could just ride down the hill on my bike, stoned as hell.
It didn't freak you out, though?
No. It was fun.
Yeah, I can't... I have no desire to, like, work out, do anything. Like, that sounds fun. Yeah. It sounds like something I'd ideally like to do. But when I own a bike, I almost certainly won't do it. I'll think about how much I want to go for the ride that day, but I'll probably kick the can for like at least a week or 2 weeks before.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm just trying to say that, like, the ritual of, like, smoking a joint, as enjoyable it is, and we got no disagreement there that it's fun. It's just like there's got to be other things too that you can, other high activities that you can do that.
Like, like, think about your first cup of coffee every day.
Yeah.
Aren't you, like, super excited about that?
Yeah, totally.
It's because you're feeding an addiction. Like, we don't ever feel happier than we're giving into addictions. Think about, like, when you get that half hour of Netflix when you've worked, like, 70 hours a week, right?
Right.
It's like you finally are feeding this neglected part. Whereas, like, if this is your, like, 50th hour of Netflix, you're not even looking to see that the show has started. Right, it's like you're just running a loop kind of thing, right? Like, it's at that point, like, you've satiated so much of your addiction that it's like, if you were hardcore, like, heroin addict or something, it's just like you're chasing even more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, addiction is always seen as this, like, negative thing, but it can be fun to be addicted to something, right?
It is fun.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would say they have a love-hate relationship with it, right? Because it's like, people that, like, love food, for example. It's like, does it make it inherently better when they go out to eat eventually? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, fuck yeah, I'm doing something that I know is terrible.
Well, it's like any drug that isn't addictive, I just forget about it, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't like it. There's a lot of really fun, mind-bending chemicals out there that just don't sort of attach themselves to the reward center of the brain.
Yeah.
And like there was an experimental time in my life when I did those things, but it's like I just stopped. It was just like it's more of a pain in the ass than anything, right? Whereas like an addictive substance like caffeine, it's like I have a love affair with that thing that has been unbroken for my adult life. So,
but it's also because it's like it like literally doesn't have known downs. You know what I mean? Like it's not a thing that's like destroying us. We know it's affecting sleep, which is likely destroying us. But like, like as far as addictions go, it's like, who cares? Like this is something fun to give into,
Yeah, well, but that's just my personality. Like I've always gravitated towards addictions like that because I'm a neurotic person, and if I'm taking a substance, I'm researching the fuck out of it, right?
Yeah.
And so anything that had a much higher risk profile was more dangerous. I wouldn't try that enough to get addicted to it, right?
Yeah. I have the same like paranoia around like I always had boundaries of what was eventually going to be like what I was willing to try and not, right? Like the only thing that's been on my horizon in recent years that I've never tried, which I might try, is ayahuasca or DMT. Yeah. Just because I've heard of like the after effects for people with anxiety, depression, whatever.
Right.
And like, it's good for PTSD or whatever, right? Like all these, it might do something crazy. And I kind of want that leap forward, like in a manufactured way, if it happens again, or if not, then just to experience it, right? Like,
yeah, I totally want to try that as well. The other one that I want to try is ibogaine. Have you tried that before?
Is that the leaves that dudes chew on in like Thailand?
No, that's cat, I think, or I don't know what that is.
I want to chew on those leaves. Anyways, what's ibogaine?
Ibogaine is a psychedelic that's not very commonly used, but it's used actually to treat opiate addiction.
Is it the one that comes from a cactus?
It may be. I mean, there's mescaline that comes from a cactus.
Oh, that's what. Never mind. That's.
I don't really know where ibogaine comes from.
It's been too long since I watched. Do you remember Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia?
Yeah.
He did an episode on ibogaine. I'm pretty sure. And
It seems pretty interesting. The reason why I want to try it is because there's some suggestion, not a lot of evidence, but doesn't matter the amount of evidence. But there's some evidence to suggest that it can treat tinnitus.
Really?
Yeah. So to me, it's like, even though there's no official studies done or whatever, I don't care. I'm willing to try it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that would be amazing to get rid of tinnitus. Right?
Yeah. Until this point, I hadn't thought about it, but like mine finally went away after like months and months. I'm so fucking thankful. So yeah. I can't imagine having it all the time because like that drove me insane.
Yeah, I'm on like 6 years now.
Oh my god.
I've had it.
Yeah, that's not.
So
that would drive me absolutely insane. I already have enough sound issues.
Yeah, like it I'm used to it. It's kind of like living near a waterfall or something, right?
Would you like that sound?
Like living near a waterfall?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. But I think at some point you would just not hear the sound anymore, right? Unless you like reminded yourself like, oh, there's a waterfall, then you would all immediately start to hear the sound. But most of the time you would your brain would filter it out, right?
You would hope so.
I 100% believe that's the case.
Okay.
Right?
My only experience with something similar was like a garden fountain that I could hear in my room like all summer.
Yeah.
I never got rid of that. Like that sound never
was
not a focus. I thought of destroying it every day. I thought of like destroying the cord, doing shit to make it stop because like it just drove me absolutely insane. But the homeowners like loved it, right? So.
But did you hear it all the time. Like
so like
no
I
matter
would be
where
trying to
you-
go to sleep and I would be able to hear it and just get pissed, or like I would wake up and think that was the thing that like woke me up.
Yeah, well, I could see a situation where like when you're in your bedroom, you can hear it, but you can't hear it in your living room. Then yes, you're not going to be able to habituate to it, right? But if it's like throughout your entire house, that sound is present and it doesn't ever go
Yeah.
away, then your brain is just going to ignore it eventually, right?
Again, I would hope so.
Yeah, well,
I get
mean-
what you're getting at, but
Okay.
I don't feel like if something annoys me, it goes away very often.
Well, like, so I can't remember if this is true, but apparently the Earth has like a low grade hum to it that we
Okay.
don't notice because we've never not heard it, right?
Sounds like you've been reading QAnon recently, but continue.
Maybe. I didn't like, obviously we expect people to listen to this, so I don't want to like say that for 100% sure this is true, but I think it might be true that there is actually a sound that gets generated by the Earth. And like when you think about it, you've never actually been in a circumstance where you've been away from the Earth. You've heard this sound
Right.
your whole life. Your brain just doesn't notice it, right?
Have we asked astronauts?
I don't know. But I suppose you could get into like a soundproof room. That should be enough to get rid of it, right?
Well, but like they have that issue of reacclimatizing when they come back.
Yeah.
Have you ever had sound be so debilitating that it kind of like gives you vertigo?
Yeah.
I wonder if like the low grade hum thing, if that maybe I'm just spewing bullshit now. Too.
Yeah, well, I know they have vertigo already.
Let's never check facts on this.
Yeah.
Let's just always assume that like astronauts come back and they're affected by a low grade hum. So
Yeah.
for 2 weeks, they have to get their story straight about going to space, even though it's fake.
Oh yes, of course. They are on a soundstage in Los Angeles, but they do have vertigo regardless from being
Gravity.
in zero gravity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Will you ever do one of those like space flights or anything like that? Does it interest you? Like the going up in a plane and like flying in the low atmosphere?
it's hard to say. I don't know. Like I would sort of evaluate the experience based on what is being sold to me, right? Like, so if someone comes out with like a space hotel, I might be into it, but I want to know kind of what's involved. Like, what am I getting for my $5 million or whatever
There's
it's
not
going
a
to cost?
fucking
right?
chance I'm going to a space hotel until there's 40 years of we haven't exploded or have any gas sucked out windows.
Right.
There's not
right.
a fucking chance I'm going space. We're back on space.
Hey, it's out there, right? It's all around us.
For being so fucking fake, we really talk about it a lot.
Yeah, true. I mean,
But here's the
whatever.
thing. I wish, like, I'm pretty sure, again, back to the let's just not pretend facts exist for a
Right.
while.
Mhm.
I don't think religious people believe there's any more solar system than this one solar system. So when we say there's like, this is a small, like the Milky Way is a blah, 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 and we're a
Yeah.
small thing in a bigger whatever.
Right.
I think that's all they think scientists are making that up. Like they haven't actually seen anything. Telescopes aren't real.
Yeah. So there's probably factions of certain religions which believe that, right?
I just realized like just now that I never talked to my Christian friends about space.
Yeah. Well, there's young Earth creationists, right? There's Christian fundamentalists. I don't think all of them would necessarily believe that. I mean, there's some Christians who believe that evolution does occur. It's God that's kind of directing it, right?
Yeah. And I think that's likely what people I know believe. Like otherwise it wouldn't work trying to communicate with them.
Right.
Because it's just like, yeah, you'd refer to something in biology and they'd be like, you mean those dinosaurs? They were planted. It's like,
Yeah.
oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God. Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know how you can be a Christian and believe in evolution if you take it literal that the Earth was created 6,000 years ago, right? That's the young Earth creationist
okay.
viewpoint, right?
Yeah.
But that's what the Bible says, right? That's when.
Never read it.
Yeah, well, again, facts don't exist, but I think Adam and Eve and all of that stuff took place according to the Bible 6,000 years ago. Right?
Oh yeah, I honestly, I don't really. I'm kind of embarrassed, honestly, that I didn't pick up more by osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really, like when kids were memorizing verses and stuff to like win prizes and whatever, I was just like, you guys go do it. Like it just,
yeah.
I never cared. Like the stories were never, the only time the Bible was ever entertaining to me was I was bored in church and my dad just gave me a random like pastor and he's like, you'll want to read about this. And I was like, okay, cool. And it was about this guy going in to assassinate a king. And I was like, yeah, my dad knew what was up. But that's about the only time that I like, just everything about it was so great.
Yeah, that's, I don't know how I know what I know. I think like in another life, I'm like a Jeopardy championship or something. Or sorry, Jeopardy champion. Just because I have a lot of like little tidbits of information about subjects, whereas I don't have a good in-depth knowledge on things, but I do remember little bits here and there. Yeah.
I wish I could remember cool shit. I just know like sports stuff.
Yeah, well, the reason why I remember all this weird stuff is because I never filled it with sports stuff. Like I have all this free hard drive space.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many hits or bases or balls or this person got this year and if that's good or bad or any of that stuff, right?
So if you picked up, because I'm currently going the other way, right? Like I'm not watching sports anymore, so I'm wondering what my mind will fill up with. If you suddenly got into sports, what do you think would be cut out currently to occupy that space? Like what's the most likely thing to be cut? Like, I kind of care about this, but
I think sports probably occupies a similar place to like economics and politics and stuff like that.
Really, you start to care about sports instead of like politics?
Yeah, it's a very hard thing for me to answer because I cannot imagine the version of me that's into sports. It's like a really hard thing for me to see, but I feel like the way I look at politics is the way other people look at sports, right?
Right. Because that's the thing, right? Like it blows my mind you never cared about sports.
Yeah.
Don't have any interest. Like I'm just like my world is oriented by sports. It's how I connect to people. Mm-hmm. Even if I don't know them, it's just the easiest thing to talk about at a glance,
Yeah, I know. And it sucks that I don't have that because I recognize that it would be a lot easier to connect with other guys that way. It's just like I've had people come up to me on the bus during like the Flames playoffs and stuff like that and just start talking to me about the Flames. And it's like, sorry, buddy, I don't fucking know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And I wish I did. I wish I could connect with that person at that time, but or just like people at work on the elevator or something. Right. Anything like that would be great for small talk.
So say political beliefs. I mean, it's getting this way kind of, not here, but States. Say political beliefs were as out in the open, like with flags and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, so you could connect with anybody. Do you think you actually would? Do you think it would be like sports? Like you would want to talk to the person that leans conservative? No.
No, I think that the fact that I'm not into sports isn't the reason why I don't connect with people. I think it's incidental. I think the kind of personality that I have is one where I'm trying to be different, right? And that's why sports never stuck with me because it just seemed like that was what everyone was into. Right? So if everyone was into politics and politics was something we'd all discuss, I would just be into some super weird niche version of that. I'd be like, well, sure, we're both left leaning, but you're not a anarcho capitalist voluntarist or whatever
Yeah.
shit they talk about, that I would be like super into that thing just to keep myself out of the mainstream, I think.
Right.
So